So, Luca, what's going on, man?
Today we're talking about not having time to read. The only thing that I've been reading recently is the upcoming Rumination, or it just started, The Bone Shard Daughter. So look forward to that.
Can I get your initial thoughts?
Super interesting. Like, I'm still super confused about the magic system, but I like the perspective of the multiple different characters.
Hmm.
I am enjoying it so far.
Nice.
Um, but we will talk about not having time to read. And let me show you something that I bought almost a year ago now.
Oh no.
I bought,
Oh yeah, put your hand behind. Yeah, there we
give
go.
me,
Brandon Sanderson. This
Brando
is
Sando.
Mistborn. Oh, the
this is the
Rhythm of
Rhythm
War.
of War.
Okay.
What does it sound like?
This is how thick it is.
Oh,
Ooh,
It is
that
a
is
chonker.
thick one.
So yeah, I still haven't read the third book. This is the fourth book. So,
But you bought the fourth?
I did. I bought it as soon as it came out.
I have so many questions, but please continue.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, that's just like a taste of, or it's just a visual representation of how thick these stories can be. I mean, like this is a very long book. Like this is a monster. It's like 1,300 pages. Yeah,
Holy,
thick.
that is chonky.
it is. Yeah, it is excellent, but it takes a long time to get through. Honestly, he writes them faster than I read them. Like, I'm not even joking.
That's incredible. Okay, I have some questions.
Okay.
Unless you have some more to add to your experience with not having time to read.
Not really. I just haven't had time this week. That has been my week.
Okay, so this is funny in that Will's actually been reading this week, and the two of us, for the most part, haven't.
Mhm.
I've been reading this graphic novel. I was telling you guys a bit off camera, I should say. But I have some questions about book piles, whether they be digital or physical book piles. Now, Luka, you and I are both miniature painters. I think I paint a little more frequently than you do.
Mhm.
But back when we were before the pandemic, when we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, often you were painting at least one model a week, if not much more than that.
Yes.
So this 2020, at the beginning of 2020, I got a 3D printer.
Mhm.
And so you and I used to purchase board games with tons of minis in them.
Yep.
And we would split the minis and we would like roll dice to decide who got to pick first. And then we'd pick one by one
Yep.
all the minis. And so I have, accumulated a pile of boxes with hundreds of minis in them at this point, maybe even thousands, that sits on the shelf that I rarely go through. And sometimes I will and be like, wow, this is a really cool mini. I should paint this, but I don't have time.
Mhm.
And so it sits in that box and just basically takes up room in my life. But when I got a 3D printer, all that physical storage turned into hard drive storage, in that I subscribe to these Patreons that provide I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 20 models a month in various sizes. And sometimes there's 50 models in a monthly release. And now all that storage, I don't have to look at it. It's just somewhere on a disk.
Mhm.
And I make sure everything's organized so that when I do want to print and paint those things, it's there.
Mhm.
But I know throughout the course of my life, there are some minis that I own that I paid for and downloaded. I'm just never going to print.
Yep.
And even if I print them, I might not paint them. I feel the same way about books. I'm looking over and I have 3 or 4 art books I've just never opened.
Mhm.
I just bought them because I really loved the movie and I wanted to have something from the movie. So I bought the art book. And a few of them I've read and they're awesome, but I don't know, I just wanted them, so I bought them. And then there's other actual books I bought because the covers were cool, or even I think I mentioned in our last rumination, I started buying the books that we're reviewing just so that I can give them to people if they're like, hey, that sounded interesting.
Yeah.
Or force people I love to read them so I have more people to talk about it. Or like, hey, watch our podcast. But I don't need those. Like I held it up on screen, and for the most part, I haven't really touched them since, but I wanted them. How much of your purchasing books is solely out of, hey, that's pretty cool, I want that? And how much of it is like, I actually intend to read this at the earliest convenience?
I feel like more of them I wanted to read. Like I'll hear about a book that I want to read, and then I'll like be in chapters and be like, ooh, like there it is. Like that's a cool cover. Like I'll buy that and read it. So like I watched the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy years and years ago. And then I was like looking for a book. I don't even remember what book. It was a fantasy book. And I just walked through the sci-fi section. I saw it and I was like, oh, wow. It was like all the series in one giant book.
Oh, yeah. Hardcover.
So I bought it. Yeah. And then I've never opened it. Like I've never even read the first page.
Oh, no way.
So like I've wanted to read it, but it's just, I have like this list of books. Actually, I have another book here. I don't know if I can.
The ninth.
Zoom. It's The Ninth House.
Okay. Who's this by?
This is by, it's by Leigh Bardugo. I actually bought this book exclusively because of the snake on the cover. So just like a black snake that like weaves through the letters.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool. And it's a New York Times bestseller. And I was like, wow, this looks interesting. I didn't even read the synopsis. I just bought it because of the cover. And then later I like heard a review about it that was like excellent, like one of the best books of the year, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I should read that. Like I have it. But I haven't. I still haven't opened it.
Okay, so I also have a pile of books off screen here. One I am actively reading. So, but it's a graphic novel. So but it relates to another one that's just off screen here. I was talking to you guys about Monstress, Volume 1. I bought that, I think at this point, 3 months ago, if I'm remembering correct. I think I mentioned it on the podcast. I went on this date where we went to a bookstore and bought books. I don't know. And it was one of the ones I bought because I was like, oh, cool cover. And there was like the full, like thick ass, like this is everything that's ever been released for this series. And then like Volume 1. And I was like, which one should I get? And then I was like, oh, save money and get this. What if I don't like it? And so it sat on my shelf for 3 months until like maybe a week ago. I had like a night where I wasn't doing anything. We had everything recorded. I had edited everything. And I was like, sure, I'll crack this book open. Because I tried to like 3 or 4 times, like had it on my bedside table and then just like fell asleep or like, you know, had other shit to do. And then I finally started reading it and was like, this is incredible. I love this. This has been sitting on my shelf for 3 months. This is the best. And so I immediately ordered the next 2 volumes, which I'll try to show here. Really cool art. By 2 women, Marjorie Liu and Sana Takada, Takeda, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's fucking incredible. At least I think they're 2 women. I don't know. I shouldn't assume. But yeah, it's a really cool story if you haven't checked that out. But then I also have, this is Arthur Spiderwick's Field Guide to Fantastic World Around You. If anyone's read the Spiderwick Chronicles, it's the book that exists within that world. This was a Christmas gift that I flipped through but never read. Tony DeTurlizzi is the artist. And this is God of War, which I talk about ad nauseum. And I haven't read this. This is like a lore book of all the journal entries that Atreus fills out. And this one I've had for like 6 months. And it's just been sitting there. And I'm just like, man, I should really dive into that. And then I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what my problem is. And especially since we started, like you put me onto Audible, I think. You were like, hey, you should try listening to books opposed to reading them. Oh, and I forgot, I have The Green Knight. Again, I solely bought this because it had the poster on the cover, and I really wanted something from The Green Knight. And so I had to buy it because I'm a filthy, filthy consumer. But yeah, ever since we started doing like Audible books, I'm like, I buy less physical books, but you get the credit every month. And so I'm just like, hey, that's a cool cover.
Mhm.
And I add books to my wish list or to my library that like, I don't know if I'm ever going to read them. And like, I only really make time for the Ruminations books because, that's something we like agreed to do. Yeah. What about you, Will? Do you have a pile of books that you haven't read?
Yes. No, I would say I probably have a very extensive one. It got to the point where like if I went to a bookstore, I'd probably purchase anywhere between 5 to 10.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
I usually go to like those like used bookstores and stuff like that, like the older ones.
Mhm.
So like it's usually I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I find that like Chapters or Indigo or whatever, Coles is usually kind of lacking with fantasy and stuff like that.
I'm a sucker for the big brand stores.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah,
I like the appeal of like the small,
yeah. Also,
owned,
just
like,
because
local.
yeah, well, also because like the last two places that I lived, I guess for the better part of a decade, were like relatively close to a smaller bookstore, so that's also a thing. Um, yeah, I would probably say probably have like I don't know, like 200 books or some shit.
That you haven't read.
I would say probably right now about 20 to 25 that I haven't read yet. But yeah, I don't know, because like usually like what I'm really bad for, and I think I might have mentioned this before, is like I'll read like 4 books at a time, just
Yeah.
like at different like points and stuff. And but like lately I found that I've just been like drawn into one, which is the Inheritance Cycle, like my boy Christopher Paolini, because I used to love it when I was a kid. So like that's pretty much all that I've been reading lately. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay. You seem to reread books often. Like you say,
yeah,
you'll pick up The Hobbit every once in a while and just start reading at a random point, and
yeah.
then you end up finishing the book, and you're like, oh shit.
I know
Um,
I've read The Fall of Reach, like one of the Halo books, like probably about like 12 times. It's
Geez.
like
Okay. So how much of your reading would you say is rereading? Like what percent? What's the ratio?
fuck. uh probably
Is it
like
like less or more than half?
probably just slightly less than half.
Okay.
Lately I've been like reading a lot of like maybe not like non fantasy, more so just like it's like manuals on like how to like do stuff.
Okay.
Um yeah, but like also like I like to read like history as well. So like those are kind of, if I'm not like reading a fantasy book, that's probably what I'm reading, is one of those two. But
I
yeah,
have such a hard time in actually like putting aside time to read things because I can't do the multiple things at once.
yeah,
And if I do, they have to be in different mediums. Like I could read a book like this graphic novel series I'm reading and then listen to a book on Audible, or I could read a physical book and listen to a book on Audible, or watch a TV show and then watch a movie, like all in the same day. But I can't pick up two separate books and start, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
It's
Mhm.
not a
That
very good
would
habit.
no, and I do the thing where like if I'm like in one thing, I'll like stop at like let's say like halfway through the book, and then I won't pick up any other book because I'm like, no, I'm reading this book, but I'm not into it or whatever the case is, or I don't have time or I don't make time, and then so there's all these other books that start to pile up, and I'm like, well, I can't get to those until I've finished the Green Knight that I haven't read a page of. And it just starts this awful thing where, like, maybe a year later, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to read that book. It's time to move on. And then I'll just like binge, and then it happens again.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. Like right now, I probably had like, yeah, like I said, like I don't know, 15 to like maybe 20 books that I've bought like just since like the spring, that have just been like sitting there, just like a whole wide range. But then I just went and bought like the entire like Inheritance like cycle like in a box set, because actually like I have all the hardcover ones from when I was a kid, but they're like completely torn apart from like
you should
rereading and
read a
stuff.
manual on how to restore books.
Mayhaps, yeah, because like yeah, well like I just like didn't want to like fuck with them, so
Yeah.
like yeah, I reordered this, but like the Inheritance cycle, like I think the second, third, and fourth books alone are like minimum like 1,000 to like 1,500 pages, something like that. Like they just like increase in size. So like yeah, I just have like a stack that's just gonna be like collecting dust for the next like 5 months.
Yeah. There was a phase like 2016 to like 2018-ish, like right before Force Awakens came out to right after Last Jedi came out, where I read every Star Wars book that came out like religiously. I have a whole shelf in a different room of like everything in chronological order, including comic books, including like all different trilogy timelines. And then as soon as Last Jedi hit, I was like, what the fuck is the point? They don't even care. Like it's not real canon. It's like book reader canon. So I was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
But there's some good stories in there. But that was weird because like I like set timelines for myself in that because it's like, okay, I want to read these before the movie comes out so I can understand the Easter eggs. And then, you know, when there's no Easter eggs, you're like, fucking, what was the point of that? Like, there's one that I think we talked about before that predates Rogue One, or is like the prequel, I guess, or like leads into Rogue One. That one's pretty awesome and was important to the story. But
Yeah.
besides that, they're all sort of just.
I should also note as so like I don't seem as scatterbrained as I probably just sounded, but I also like buy a lot of books that I think that like, because like I have like this weird like thing in my head, especially due to like the past year and a half, where if like the world were to end, I would have like a massive library. So if I were to like have to like re-educate like the human race as it's budding coming out of the bunkers and stuff like that, like
It's just the Hobbit and fucking Aragon.
I would be able to shape the world.
Oh,
so like,
yeah, no, that totally made you sound less scatterbrained.
yeah, just
no,
more
good.
psychotic.
Good thing you brought that up.
But like, yeah, but like classics and stuff like that. Like, I'll like if I see like, or if I see like a hardcover of like a classics, I'll be like that I really like.
Okay.
I'll buy it. So, for example, like the last time I was like cruising books, like a bookstore, I bought like this like hardcover of like Dracula, like the Bram Stoker and stuff like that. So like those kinds of, or like H.G. Wells, or like classics and shit, but like only like the cool ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck your Pride and Prejudice.
I don't want to grab them because they're hefty, but I have the Rise of Skywalker art book off to the side, and I have this beautiful Critical Role deluxe edition collector's vault art book that I've literally never opened. It takes up so much fucking room. I got a Blade Runner 2049 one that's like 16 inches long. It doesn't fit on any shelf well, and I've literally never opened it. I'm like, these are great coffee table books, and I don't own a coffee table, and I don't have people over. So I don't know why I buy these things. Sorry, I hijacked your segment here, Luka, with my fucking yeah. I want to ask one last question before we wrap this up, though. How much, I know there's obviously like that fucking famous quote of like, don't judge a book by its cover. How much does a cover go into you guys actually buying a book? Like, well, you said you buy it if it's like a nice hardcover of a classic. Luka, you bought that because it had a snake on it. Like, how big of a part does the face art play for you guys?
Depends how much I know about the story. If I know zero about the story, then like a lot. But if I know anything about the story and I'm even slightly interested, it doesn't really matter. I'm disappointed if I don't like the cover, but I'll still buy it. But if I know nothing about the story, like Ninth House, like I just thought it was like such like a simple but elegant snake. And I was like, wow, that's so cool and so shiny. So I was like, I'm buying that hardcover.
Nice.
So yeah, it depends on what I know.
So I do have a funny story about judging a book by its cover. But I would say like it depends on the book. Like if it's like definitely like I said, like I saw like Dracula, which is also like one of my favorite stories of all time. Like I wanted to get like a nice copy, like a hardcover one. So like usually I only do that if I see something like I actually like, but I would be wary of like mass produced ones. So like there's not like a complete thrashing of Canterbury classics, but like you might have seen like when you go into like bookstores or like especially like I know these sell like tons of them at like Costco and stuff, where it's like these hardcover like really nice books of like classics and stuff like that. And I find that like sometimes like the spine isn't as good. So like if I see like something like basically like if I buy a book, I just wanted to make sure that it like stays together. Because I know I'm gonna like put it through the ringer. So
I have some I have some Howard Pyle, King Arthur, and Robin Hood just off screen here.
Yeah.
And I kept them in my garage. When I moved houses like 10 to 15 years ago at this point, they were in the garage and stayed in there for like maybe 10 or 12 years. Uh and they're still in good shape, good enough that I put them on the shelf in my room that I like keeping closer to me than the other shelves outside.
Yeah. Also, yeah, quick story time. So when I was a kid, like I was like up visiting my grandmother for the summer, and then we like, which is also in the town in my what would go on to be my hometown eventually, but we were like we went to like this one store, it's just kind of like a mini department store, and then so like I was in there like doing my thing. I was probably about like 8 or 9 years old at the time. I saw like a stack of like, you know, it's like New York bestseller kind of thing. So then I saw one with like a werewolf, and I was like, sweet, because like I don't know, I thought it was gonna be about like werewolves and stuff, right? Did not. It was no. It was like this like it was like a romance novel for like geared towards like middle-aged women. So like that
Yeah,
week,
yo, that actually happened to me a lot in like when I was younger and like first got into reading fantasy. I would just see like the name of a book at like a used bookstore or something and
yeah.
just grab it. And then they're like Danielle Steele novels that I just like I found them in the garage not long ago. I was like, why do I have these? Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
That was the summer I learned what like pectorals and the abs were. And yeah.
That's incredible.
Like I had like no idea. Like we had not hit sex ed in school yet at this point. So like
Oh my god, sex ed via romance novels.
but it was
Like it's the 1980s.
it was yeah. It was
Okay, sorry.
I still have it too, which is a funny thing.
You still have that book?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that as a rumination. Okay, sorry. I have more questions now because I fucking love this. How do you guys display your books?
In piles, like a wizard.
Like a wizard.
I keep them together. Like if it's a series, boom, 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 and then by size.
Okay, so like your shelf is very much like a constant,
Yeah.
like sloping. Okay, but covers are important to you,
Yes.
as they are for me. How like would you ever like display it intentionally so that the cover is showing, or if it has a nice spine, do you do that as well?
I would. I mean, I don't have my books are in my room, and I don't really host many people in my room.
Mhm.
But in the future, I would like to have like a big bookshelf where I'd like turn the covers I like, be like, oh, look what I've read. Like,
Yeah. I think it's interesting too because it's like owning physical books outside of having them to read is kind of funny. Like having books on display is like you say, it's like, oh, see what I've read. I'm very learned. Here's a manual on how to repair books. But it's weird. But like when I look at the books, like they're just to the left of me here, it's like I call them like micro joys. It's the reason why I keep miniatures and like little bobbleheads and stuff around too, because it's like these are things I see and they remind me of like properties I love or stories I love or people I love. And for books, it's like the same thing, but I just like looking at it's almost like looking at a wall of accomplishments. Like, yeah, I did read that, or yeah, there is a lesson to be learned out of that story. But also the spines look fucking cool. So like, and the covers are cool. So like sometimes I'll just like aesthetically like change, or I love like going on Pinterest and just like bookshelf and seeing what other people have done with their bookshelves.
yeah.
But I think when it comes to mine, I'm actually too like I don't know, like pragmatic, like efficient. Like I'm like, if these books are different sizes, they can't be next to each other. It has to slope up gradually, or else I hate it. And if this book is as tall as the one next to it, but it's not as thick, and so it's like indented into like I hate that. Like the Sword of Kaigen is tall, but it's thinner than Fires of Vengeance, and every time I see it, I cringe a little bit. I don't know where to put it because it's thicker than everything else, but like I don't know, it's tough. I don't have this problem with audiobooks.
Yeah.
They're all just nice, one by one JPEG.
Yeah, I don't. You could literally just use a stack of books in my room as a mattress because, like, I'm literally that's what I'm using for a stand for my laptop right now. It's just
Oh, you're using books?
Yeah.
Which ones?
I have a Guinness World Records from 2003. Have you ever heard of the novel called Inkheart?
Yeah, I have. And that's a really sweet cover. I actually own that.
Yeah,
it's like red with like a
yeah, it's holding it up right now.
Sick. Yeah, that's like, oh man, remember the Scholastic Book Fair?
Yeah. You'll
Yeah,
bastard with his knife.
Straight up.
Yeah. Also, one of my anthropology textbooks, Archaeology of the Americas, 9th edition. So it's just all over the place.
Okay, quick story, then we can move on. One time I called my buddy and he picks up and he's like, "What?" I was like, "Whoa, like, what are you busy or something?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm reading." And he like, we're on FaceTime. So he like pulls this thing out. He's reading like, I can't remember the guy's name, but so and so's Bathroom Reader Volume 9. Like just fun facts for the toilet. I'm like, and he's like sitting on his like living room couch, just like taking it all in. I was like, yo, what the fuck? I'm reading. What? Fucking, you might as well be on TikTok, man.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's like the Facebook news page from like your local
of the
community.
1990s.
Yeah.
And he was on volume 9. He's like, yeah, I found these all in my garage. Like all 9 of them.
I'm a journalist. He's looking at the coffee news. Like,
yeah, he said like when he was younger he had a very short attention span, so these were the only books he could actually read. Readers. Oh, shout out Sharif.
Oh no. That makes it worse. But it adds up for sure. You reading this shit, man?
Yo, did you know that? No, how could I have possibly known that, man? Yeah, okay. You can have your segment back now, Luka.
It's done.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's move into Matt's Monster Music. So, because we're talking about music today in our main topic,